Hello friends, I am Indrani Das Sharma, Associate Professor in Jhulelal Institute of Technology, Nagpur. The topic for today's lecture is Impact of Climate Change, Causes for Global Warming and Carbon Footprint Reduction. The flow of the lecture would be Introduction to Weather and Climate. What exactly is climate change? Global warming and its causes, vulnerability profile of India, impact of climate change, and what is carbon footprint and its reduction. Weather, as we know, is a mix of events that occurs each day in our atmosphere. It may be cloudy one day and sunny the other, or it may be freezing and snowy, or may be rainy or humid. Weather differs from place to place as well as with time. It can change within few hours, or in other words we can say that weather is very uncertain. Climate on the other hand is a statistics of weather in a place over long period of time. In natural course, climate takes hundreds, thousands or probably even million years to change. Climate change is a change in the statistical distribution of weather patterns when that change lasts for an extended period of time. Climate change is a natural process. However, this has been accelerated due to anthropogenic or human activities like rampant urbanization and industrialization have badly hit the environment. To meet our ever increasing demand of energy, we have exploited the natural resources. Most of the required energy is derived by burning fossil fuels. They are used as fuels for power generation in thermal power plants, for fueling vehicles and transport systems, domestic and industrial heating purposes, and so on. The emitted carbon dioxide causes a phenomena which we call as global warming. As shown on the screen, the sun, it gives solar radiations. These solar radiations are of shorter wavelength and they enter into the Earth's atmosphere. Part of this radiation is absorbed by the Earth's surface. The Earth's surface get heated and the heat waves, which are of longer wavelength, are re-radiated back, and this heat energy escapes into the space. Thus, in absence of the gases like carbon dioxide, the Earth's temperature would be lower. Now, for example, if the atmosphere contains substantial amount of carbon dioxide, then this carbon dioxide, they absorb the heat energy and radiate it back to the Earth. Thus, the Earth's surface is more heated than it would be in absence of these gases. This gas, that is carbon dioxide, it produces a effect which is similar to greenhouse effect, and hence these gases are known as greenhouse gas. Thus, we can say that greenhouse gases are gases that absorbs and emit radiant energy within the thermal infrared range. The primary greenhouse gases in Earth's atmosphere are water vapor, carbon dioxide, methane, nitrous oxide and ozone. These greenhouse gases, they make the Earth habitable. Without greenhouse gases, the average temperature of Earth's surface would be about 0 degree Fahrenheit or minus 18 degree Celsius, rather than the normal average of 15 degree Celsius. However, high concentration of these gases causes increased heat retention of the Earth, consequently increasing the overall temperature of the Earth, causing global warming. This global warming, it in turn influences climate change. Global warming, it is estimated that due to global warming, the Earth's average temperature could increase as much as by 4.8 degrees Celsius by the year 2100. To prevent the onset of catastrophic changes to the Earth's climate, we human beings must reduce our emissions of greenhouse gases. That is, we should stop emitting or rather minimizing emissions of carbon dioxide, methane, nitrous oxide, hydrofluorocarbons, perfluorocarbons, sulfur hexafluoride, etc. The causes of global warming can be categorized into two broad classes. One is due to natural activities, which comprises a very small percentage as compared to the second class, which is anthropogenic or human activities. Natural activities include eruption of volcanoes, wildfires, production of methane due to anaerobic decomposition as in case of marshy lands, whereas anthropogenic activities includes deforestation, ranching, burning of fossil fuels like coal, petroleum gas, oils for meeting the energy requirements, vehicular emissions, agricultural practice, industrial emissions and so on. Global warming is an impending disaster. Now, first let us revise some of the definitions pertaining to disaster. So, as shown on the screen, hazard is any substance, phenomena or situation which has the potential to cause disruption or damage to people, their property, their services and their environment. Risk is the probability that negative consequences may arise when hazards interact with vulnerable areas, people, property, environment. So, risk is a concept which describes a potential set of consequences that may arise from a given set of circumstances. Vulnerability is a concept which describes factors or constraints of an economic, social, physical or geographic nature, which reduces the ability to prepare for and cope up with the impact of the hazards. Resilience is the ability of individuals, communities, organizations and states to adapt to and recover from hazards, shocks or stresses without compromising long-term prospects for development. Now, let us consider one case. As shown on the screen, we have a seashore with a coastline named as A. Above the coastline, we have a plateau B. Now, increased temperature results in melting of polar ice caps or the ice covers and the glaciers. This water, it increases the mean sea level, which is a potential hazard. Thus, water occupies coastline A as the sea level increases. This results in loss of land, habitation, etc. So, we say that coastline A is vulnerable. Any community staying on coastline A is at risk, but the community residing on plateau B, which is at a higher level, has lesser chance of exposure to the hazard and hence are less vulnerable. Now, considering the second case, where there are two communities residing simultaneously at coastline A, say we have community X and another community Y. Both of them are at equal exposure due to flooding resulting from the rise of sea level. However, there is a slight difference. Community Y is more resourceful, or in other terms we can say that community Y is more rich than community X. So, community Y has access to information regarding impending danger. They have resources and means to escape the danger. They have more money so that they can relocate themselves at a better location. So, in other words, they are better prepared for the danger, hence at lesser risk than their counterparts community X, which is more vulnerable as compared to community Y. So, since community Y is rich, has more resources, they are better prepared to adapt to the changes, thus they are more resilient. So, we say that vulnerability in this particular case due to mean sea level rise increases if there is high population density near the coastline. There is more unplanned development, less awareness amongst the resident about the impending danger, lack of education, lack of resources or increasing poverty. Generally, the area near the coastlines or near the river banks, they are densely populated because of easily available water resources or due to some other means of employment. If the community is poor, then the development is generally unplanned. They tend to occupy the area which is more vulnerable, and thus the hazard slowly starts turning into a disaster. Poverty initiates lack of education, lack of food, and hence the disaster it increases manifold. Now let us see the vulnerability profile of India. India has been vulnerable to a large number of natural and man-made disasters due to its unique geoclimatic and socio-economic conditions. India is highly vulnerable to floods, droughts, cyclones, earthquakes, landslides, avalanches and forest fires. Out of 35 states and union territories in the country, 27 of them are disaster prone. Over 40 million hectares of land are prone to floods and river erosion. Of the 7,516 kilometer long coastline, 5,700 kilometers is prone to cyclones and tsunami. 68% of the cultivable area is vulnerable to the drought apart from the non-climatic hazards. The multi-hazard map of India is shown on the screen. The climatic profile of India shows that it has an extraordinary variety of climatic regions. The climate ranges from tropical in the south to temperate and alpine in the Himalayan north. The India's climate is strongly influenced by Himalayas and the Thar deserts. A study of rainfall data from 1875 to 1998 shows that there has been at least 3 major droughts, that is in the year 1877, 1899 and 1918, when more than 60% of the country was affected. In India, Rajasthan, Saurashtra and Kutch, followed by Jammu and Kashmir and Gujarat, these are the regions which are more vulnerable to drought. The drought of 1987 was of unprecedented intensity, resulting in serious crop damages and an alarming scarcity of drinking water. Rainfall in India is influenced by 2 seasons of rain, say southwest monsoon which occurs during the period of June to September and northeast monsoon which occurs during the period of October to December. Southwest monsoon is the most important feature controlling Indian climate because about 75% of the annual rainfall is received during a short span of just 4 months, that is from June to September. Rainfall over India has a large spatial and temporal variability. The onset of southwest monsoon normally starts over the Kerala coast, that is the southern tip of the country, by 1st June. It advances along the Konkan coast in early June and covers the whole country by the middle of July. However, the onset of this monsoon occurs about a week earlier over the islands in the Bay of Bengal. The monsoon is influenced by global and local phenomena like El Nino, northern hemisphere temperature, sea surface temperature, snow cover, etc. Heavy rainfall in the mountainous catchment under break conditions result in flooding of the plains. Cyclonic systems of low pressure called monsoon depressions are generally formed in the Bay of Bengal. These systems generally form in the northern part of the bay with average frequency of about 2 to 3 per month and move in a northward or northwestward direction, bringing well distributed rainfall over the central and northern parts of the country. Post monsoon or northeast monsoon or retreating southwest monsoon season that occurs from October to December is a transition season associated with the establishment of the northeasterly wind regime over the Indian subcontinent. Meteorological subdivisions of coastal Andhra Pradesh, Tamil Nadu, Kerala and south interior Karnataka are affected due to the storms forming in the Bay of Bengal. Large scale losses of life, property occur due to heavy rainfall, strong winds and storm surges in the coastal region. The climate change is evident from the increase in global average air and ocean temperatures, precipitation and extreme rainfall, widespread melting of snow and ice, storm surges, coastal flooding and rising of global mean sea level as recorded in the 4th assessment report of Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, that is IPCC. It is expected to increase the frequency and intensity of current extreme weather events and give rise to a new vulnerabilities with differential spatial and socio-economic impacts on the communities. This unprecedented increase is expected to have severe impacts on the hydrological cycle, water resource, droughts, flood, drinking water, forest, ecosystems, sea level, coastal area losses of coastal wetlands and mangroves, food security, health and other related areas. The impact would be particularly disastrous for the developing countries, including India, and further degrade the resilience of poor, vulnerable communities, which make up most of the population of many Indian cities. The climate change is related to anthropogenic activities. Rather, it is more influenced by anthropogenic activities. There is observed change in surface temperature, rainfall, evaporation rate and extreme events. Thus, climate change is a significant environmental challenge. The main impact of global climate change will be felt due to changes in climate variability and extreme weather events. The extreme weather events can be broadly classified as primary climatic events and secondary climatic events. The secondary climatic events may be climate driven as shown on the screen. The primary climatic events include cold wave, fog, snowstorms and avalanches, hailstorm, thunderstorm and dust storms, extreme temperature, tropical cyclone and tidal waves, floods, heavy rain, droughts, etc. Secondary events include incidence of epidemics or diseases, which is generally related to floods, urban and rural water shortage, which is again associated with floods as well as drought, crop plantation failure or harvest failure, which is also associated with primary climatic events like hailstorm, thunderstorm, heat wave or floods, droughts, etc., malnutrition or undernutrition and hunger, landslides, saline water intrusion and mud flows. Observation during the last decade and projections indicate that extreme events, that is like heat and cold waves, floods, droughts, cyclones and flash floods will intensify as well as increase in numbers. The extreme events also causes additional disasters like epidemics, malnutrition, etc. Extreme rainfall has substantially increased over large areas, particularly over the west coast and the central India. There is thus an urgent need of paradigm shift in disaster management, especially under changing climate. India is basically an agriculture based country and provides employment to 70% of its population in agriculture and allied activities. In India, agriculture mostly depends on seasonal rains. Excessive or deficient or untimely rainfall causes unparalleled loss of yield, resulting in economic loss. Apart from anomaly in rains, country also faces increased event of heat waves. Extreme positive departure from the normal maximum temperature results in a heat wave during the summer season. In recent years, heat wave induced casualties have increased. For instance, abnormally high temperatures were observed during April 2002 across the country, recording maximum temperature at Gannavaram, that is in Vijayawada, which recorded temperature of 49 degrees Celsius on 10th May 2002. Diurnal temperature range decreases due to urbanization. It is a new factor leading to human mortality and discomfort. Increased minimum temperatures in summer do not allow necessary nocturnal cooling to neutralize the high maximum temperature during a heat wave epoch. This also causes increased fatalities. Similar to heat wave, there is also a cold wave and fog. The occurrence of these extremely low temperature along with incursion of dry cold winds from north into the Indian subcontinent are known as cold waves. The cold waves mainly affect the areas to the north of 20° north latitude, but in association with large amplitude troughs, cold wave conditions are sometimes reported from states like Maharashtra and Karnataka also. As winter season transforms into spring, the temperature rises initially in the southern parts of India, giving rise to thunderstorms and squally weather which are hazardous in nature. Dust storms and hailstorms affect the central, northeastern, north and northwestern parts of the country. Hailstorm frequencies are highest in the Assam Valley, followed by hills of Uttarakhand, Jharkhand and Vidarbha in Maharashtra. Now, let us have a look into a case study of Himalayan glaciers. Himalayan glaciers cover about 3 million hectares or 17% of the mountain area as compared to 2.2% in Swiss Alps. They form the largest body of ice outside the polar region and are the source of water for the innumerable rivers that flow across the Indo-Gangetic plain. Himalayan glacial snowfields store about 12,000 cubic kilometer of fresh water. About 15,000 Himalayan glaciers form a unique reservoir which supports perennial rivers such as the Ganga, Indus and Brahmaputra, which are the lifeline of millions of people in countries like India, Nepal, Pakistan, Bhutan and Bangladesh. The Gangetic Basin alone is home to at least 500 million people. Glaciers in Himalaya are receding faster than in any other part of the world, and if the present rate continues, the likelihood of them disappearing by the year 2035 and perhaps sooner is very high if Earth keeps warming at the current rate. Its total area will likely shrink from the present 5 lakh square kilometer to 1 lakh square kilometer by the year 2035. The receding and thinning of Himalayan glaciers can be attributed to number 1, the global warming due to increase in anthropogenic emission of greenhouse gases. Second, the relative high population density near these glaciers and consequent deforestation. Third, land use changes have also adversely affected these glaciers. The 30.2 kilometer long Gangotri glacier has been receding alarmingly in the recent years. Between 1842 and 1935, the glacier was receding at an average rate of 7.3 meters per year. The average rate of recession between the year 1985 and 2001 is about 23 meters per year. The current trends of glacial melt suggest that the Ganga, Indus, Brahmaputra and the other rivers of the northern Indian plain would soon become seasonal rivers in the near future as a consequence of the climate change and could likely affect the economies of the region. some other glaciers in Asia, such as glaciers shorter than 4 km length in the Tibetan Plateau, are projected to disappear, and the glaciated area located in the headwaters of the Changjiang River will likely decrease in area by more than 60%. Thus, the high amount of greenhouse gas emission has led to many more problems other than global warming. It has also led to ocean acidification and other related environmental issues like bleaching of the coral reef, anoxia in the ocean. These issues can be checked by controlling the emissions. These emissions can be checked by reducing carbon footprints. Now, let us understand what exactly do we mean by the carbon footprint. A carbon footprint is defined as the total emissions caused by an individual, event, organization or product, and is expressed as carbon dioxide equivalent. Carbon dioxide equivalent and equivalent carbon dioxide are used to describe the quantity of global warming a given type and amount of greenhouse gas may cause, using equivalent amount of CO2, that is carbon dioxide, as reference. Carbon dioxide equivalency is a quantity that describes for a given mixture and amount of greenhouse gas the amount of carbon dioxide that would have the same global warming potential when measured over a specific time scale of say 100 years. The carbon dioxide equivalency for a gas is obtained by multiplying the mass and the global warming potential of the gas. The following units are commonly used as shown in the screen. In industry, it is measured as million metric tons of carbon dioxide equivalent, denoted as mmTCDE. For vehicular emissions, it is taken as gram of carbon dioxide equivalent per kilometer, that is GCDE per kilometer. For example, the global warming potential of methane over 100 years is 34 and that of nitrous oxide is 298. This means that emission of 1 million metric ton of methane and nitrous oxide respectively is equivalent to the emission of 34 and 298 million metric tons of carbon dioxide. Some of the greenhouse gases and their global warming potential is as shown on the screen. Now, let us understand what exactly do we mean by carbon footprint. For instance, when we walk, we leave a trace of our footprints behind on the ground or floor. Similarly, we leave behind a trace of all activities in the environment as carbon dioxide, and that is what is carbon footprint. Carbon dioxide, as we all know, is emitted by burning fossil fuels like coal, oil and natural gas. More the fuel we consume, the bigger is the trace that we leave, that is bigger the carbon footprint we leave. Now, for example, we are driving a car. The only carbon dioxide emitted is the exhaust. Is it really so? Then what about the amount of carbon dioxide emitted during mining, transport to the refinery, processing and transport of the petroleum to a local petrol pump? Similarly, carbon dioxide is also released during the production of the car, which is still larger. Thus, carbon footprint for driving a car is far greater than the carbon dioxide emitted only by its exhaust. For example, if you are carrying out a very simple activity like drinking a glass of water, this activity also has carbon footprint associated with it. Why? Because energy was used to purify the water, energy was used to pump this water into the tank, energy was invested in preparing the glass or the utensils. So, anything which is made in factory has some amount of energy associated with it, consequently has a carbon footprint. Something very basic as ordinary as getting vegetables from the market, This also has a carbon footprint because this vegetable may have travelled some polluting miles to get to the market. Thus, it is really impossible not to leave a carbon footprint behind, but there are actions and choices that can considerably reduce carbon footprint, and that is how we can leave a footstep on the climate change. So, though it is not possible for us to eliminate carbon footprints, but at least we can reduce the carbon footprint by considering some of the following points. If possible, walk or ride bicycle in order to avoid carbon emissions completely. Use carpooling and public transportation. This drastically reduces carbon dioxide emission by spreading them out over many riders. A person can drive a low carbon vehicle. Electric cars, they do not emit any carbon dioxide, only if they are charged with clean electricity, like they are charged with wind energy or solar power. Speeding and unnecessary acceleration reduces mileage by up to 33%, wasting fuel and money and also increasing carbon footprint. Properly inflated tires improve fuel mileage by up to 3%. Using correct grade of motor oil, keeping engine tuned can increase fuel efficiency by up to 40%. Using correct grade of motor oil, keeping engine tuned can increase fuel efficiency by up to 40%. Being stuck in traffic wastes fuel and unnecessarily creates carbon dioxide. We can combine errands to make fewer trips, remove excess weight from the car so that fuel is not wasted, and then we have lesser carbon footprints. One can reduce carbon footprints from air travel also, like fly less frequently, fly to a shorter distance, fly in economy class, take fewer and longer vacations that are far away, and more frequent and drivable holidays closer to home. Go for video conferencing instead of traveling. If travel is imperative, then one should use economy class, as each flyer's share of a flight's carbon emission will be relatively less because of the same reason that it would be spread out over more people, something similar to carpooling. One can reduce carbon footprint at home also, like insulating or sealing your home so that there is less requirement of heaters. Make energy efficiency a primary consideration when choosing new appliances like furnace, air conditioner, dishwasher or refrigerator. Turn off the lights when not in use. Replace incandescent light bulbs with compact fluorescent or LED lights. Do not set thermostat at too high or too low. Add solar panels to the roof of the home. If a person lives in a state with net metering law, one could eliminate the electricity bill or even earn some money by selling electricity back to the grid. One can reduce carbon footprint from the food also. Eat locally produced organic food instead of importing something from far away places. Reduce wastage of food. For example, if the food is wasted, then we are increasing the carbon footprint because the energy has been put into the producing of the food. Reduce meat and dairy products. Other ways to reduce the carbon footprint would be lower the amount of energy used to pump, treat and heat water by washing the car less often, using climate appropriate plants in the garden, installing drip irrigation so that plants receive only what they need, and making water efficient choices when purchasing plumbing materials. Reuse and recycle, like not using disposable items. Support clean energy sources. It can be concluded that global warming increases mean temperature of the earth. This in turn influences a variety of events like increased precipitation, thinning of ice cover, increased sea level, loss of habitat, increased chances of storm and floods, intensification of the storms, heat wave, increased occurrence of droughts, soil erosion, etc. The increased temperature and adversities increases energy requirements, thus increasing carbon emissions. The carbon emissions are quantified as carbon footprints. Eliminating carbon footprints is practically not possible. However, it can be reduced to a considerable extent. There are various legislations, strategies for environmental protection and sustainable development, which would be continued in the next lecture. Thank you for your patient hearing.